Oh, hi. Welcome to Say It, I Dare You, the podcast where we pull apart the personal meanings of taboo or hard to say words and phrases with lovely guests and some gentle peer pressure. Today, we are talking about asking for more, the people pleaser's worst nightmare. This episode is going to dive into what it means to ask for more and why it feels scary to do so, but also why you should just shoot your friggin' shot. I usually start episodes by diving into our definition of the title, but when I was doing research for this episode, I found it to be interesting and also incredibly telling about how people feel about asking for more. Search suggestions included, why is it so hard for me to ask for something? Why do I feel weak asking for help? Why am I so scared to ask for money? And why is it hard to admit I need help? So on and so forth. You get the point. That's what we're talking about today. I'm Quinn, and today I am joined by Sarah Stockdale, founder of Growclass, marketing wizard, the host of The Growth Effect, a Globe and Mail podcast, and the author of the popular millennial newsletter, We Need to Talk About This. It's one of my favorites. I forward it to people all the time. Sarah is also the person who taught me to chase my dreams in ways I think she will never understand the power of. And I've watched this woman encourage plenty of people to ask for more after learning her own hard lessons that it's really not all that bad. So Sarah, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. This episode topic came to fruition between you and I while we were chatting about imposter syndrome and inhaling charcuterie at a Growclass event. And you immediately perked up at the thought of being able to tell your story. I've seen the imposter syndrome side of you, and I've also seen the confident go-getter side of you as well. So tell me why you relate to this episode topic.
I think for a lot of us, especially women, especially anyone who is raised, I think, in a lower income household, we were very socialized from a very young age to not ask for things, to ask for the bare minimum. Like I still remember really young, one of the main rules my household had when we would go to friends' houses or like family friends or acquaintances, we could only ever ask for tap water. So if someone was like, hey, Sarah, would you like some eggnog or some chocolate milk? I would say, no, thank you. Like, water's fine, please. And I got this seed of an idea planted really, really young of like, water's fine, please. Room temperature tap water for me. That's my jam. Love me some
Not
room
even
temperature.
An ice cube.
No, like a detective in like a 90s show. Like, oh, just tap water. And so, and things like that, I think like, your parents are trying to plant a seed, like be polite, don't be an asshole at people's houses, which is a good lesson. Like this is not a terrible thing to do, but I think when you are socialized to only ever ask for water, that bleeds into every aspect of your life, and you stop thinking that you are deserving of asking for anything other than like a bare minimum glass of water.
Yeah.
And like that bleeds into your career, it bleeds into entrepreneurship, it bleeds into every aspect of your life, and you don't realize you're doing it because you're like, well tap water is enough. That's enough. I can survive on that. And so you think of enough as this threshold, and you don't know how to ask for anything beyond it.
Yeah. And I feel like you being the founder of a bootstrapped company, I can imagine that bleeding into your adult life has affected you. Have you felt like it's affected your ability to grow your company, or at least in the start, how you felt about the power of growing your company?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I came out of venture-backed early stage companies in the like growth era of startups, where it was like 20% month-over-month growth was like the floor of what we were expected to produce. And I saw the excesses of that and how ridiculous that expectation was and how much that made those companies fail. And so when I started Growclass, I was like, enough is enough, you know, like, can we pay our payroll? Can we pay our bills? Can we, go through with the mission of why this thing exists? And if all of those boxes were checked, I wasn't like trying to sell like crazy or trying to go beyond just making sure the business was in like a safety position versus a growth and abundance position. And it's 4 years old, and it's taken me until this year to be like, oh no, I can shoot for the growth and abundance, and that doesn't make me greedy or hyper capitalist or asking for too much. Like I can I can aim for that and then distribute it in ways that feel good and feel values aligned.
And know that you are deserving of that more. Like that hard work, part of the hard work is the asking, I think.
Yes.
There's the building a good company and doing something scalable, but then there's also a lot of hard work that goes behind believing in what you're doing and asking other people to believe in it as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's exciting to hear that you're in like that growth and abundance stage, and knowing you, like, you're not going to do the wrong things with it.
I hope. Yeah. I think there's always the fear of like getting too big for your britches or whatever. And I'm just trying to get past that. I'm just like, as Gloria would say, like, just like go past the ceiling and be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like the unknown of what is next.
Yeah. I love that. So was there an aha moment for you in realizing it was okay to ask for more? Did it happen with your business, or was it like a pre-entrepreneurship moment?
I think it's happened like a couple of times in my career, and it's always like you get to a certain point of success or journey, and then you like hit the peak of what you think is possible, and then you kind of stay there because you don't really know what else to do for a long time. And so the first time was realizing at my very first job, I was working at a financial technology startup, and I thought I was making good money. Like, I was proud of like, I was like 1 year out of university or whatever, and I was proud of what I was making. And then I realized someone who was my exact same position was making double. Like, his salary was literally double. And I was like, oh, he can pay his student loans. He didn't have student loans. Yeah. But like, oh, he could actually like pay the maximum on his student loans. And just like realizing like, oh, I am actually not making very much money. I could be making double what I'm making at the same amount of experience and work. And like that just like, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Also, it sucks when you find out.
It does. Well,
Yeah.
and I am well aware that there are going to be multiple offshoots of this conversation that are actually just about misogyny.
Yeah.
And how asking for more is just a symbol of womanhood, and witnessing people being given more without asking is a symbol of the patriarchy.
Yes.
That's a big part of this conversation. I think as women, we're trained from a young age not to ask for more. You know, I always joke like this podcast is just a big like Growclass plug, but as it should be. Seriously, like Growclass and the people within it and you and your coaching has been a big part of the reason why I found a lot of confidence in asking for more, or even when I was freelancing, like pricing myself well. And I always give you credit, don't worry, but I always pass down this piece of feedback Sarah gave me once when I was freelancing, and I was feeling kicked when I was down. I was getting a bunch of no's while pitching, and you told me, come back next week and I want you to have 100 no's. And I was like, what the fuck, Sarah? That's not what the goal is. I don't want that. And you were like, no, the point is if you get 100 no's, you've one, put yourself out there, and that's 100 people who've seen your name. And two, the odds are you're going to get some yeses, and you can't let every no tear down your yes. But it was a good practice in asking for more, and it having to be a daily task of like, okay, well, fuck, I gotta like, it doesn't matter how kicked down I feel, I have to ask for it or I'm not going to get it. And the worst thing they can say is no. Yeah. And that's, I mean, sometimes it's really, really shitty, but it's not that bad.
I had a coach once tell me that there's no such thing as rejection, because she was like, you don't have the thing now. You ask for the thing. You still don't have the thing if they say no. Like, nothing has changed except for you have more information. You understand better your worth. You understand that person's perspective. You have just, all you have is more information. And that was one of those aha moments where I was like, oh, it's not taking anything from me to be told no. It is just providing me more information about how, like, the lens that this person has on my work and how I'm positioning the ask, and, you know, whether or not I need to do a better job of handling objections or whatever it is. But like, I'm in the same spot I was before I asked. Maybe I'm even better off because I have that additional information. And so that was like, oh, I can just be told no, and it's not going to kill me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. And I think especially in career, asking for more can be scary because if you get told no, it can feel like a bit of a like hit to your ego, right? You're like, well, but then they didn't see my value. They don't know what I'm worth. But and this is a privileged lens to look at it, but I look at it in the sense of like, you know, if I didn't get a job because that person didn't like that I'm gay or didn't like my tattoos or didn't like how I showed up, I didn't want that job anyway.
100%.
I didn't want that funder. I didn't want that client. I didn't want that friend. If they didn't receive me asking for more with excitement and like an attitude of like, you deserve that, regardless of, and you know, I'm using surface level things, tattoos and whatever, but it can feel deeper than that when it's your skills being justified or not.
And I think if you are told no, like if you're in a salary negotiation or freelancer negotiation and you are told no, now you have the information to move forward with. So you're being paid $50 an hour. You want to make $75 an hour. You ask, they say no. Now you're like, the threshold for this client is $50 an hour. I need to go find my $75 an hour clients. But if you just stay at 50 and hope they'll offer, they never will.
No,
that's not a thing that happens.
It's not how business works.
You will literally never get to the threshold of where you deserve to be, and you don't have the information that they actually won't pay you that. You haven't asked the question. So like you have to ask. And again, if they're saying no because like I'm outspoken grumpy feminist on the internet and like that's why they don't want to take Growclass, great. Excellent.
Good
like
riddance.
There are so many places for you to go to learn the things that we teach that are values aligned with what you need. I want to be like a beacon of light for the values aligned people for what we teach. And so like the other thing, I think the other side of this is like, be okay to get no and to repel certain opportunities. Like you said, because you don't want to be in those rooms. You don't want to hang with those folks. And like, that's totally fine.
Yeah. You don't have to associate with people that make you feel bad.
Yeah.
It's really quite simple.
Or who don't believe the things that you believe to be true about the world. And like, I want to hang with people who care about underrepresented people and who want to find ways to make the world better and more inclusive and kinder. And if that's not your thing, dope. Like we can just hang in different libraries and that's okay.
Yep. Separation is not a bad thing in those ways. So what was you shared the water story, so that might actually be the story, but I want to know what your earliest memory of asking for more is.
Oh, it's honestly probably the tap water thing, but I think like there are a lot of moments, and I think a lot of people who grew up with like almond family members.
Yes, the almond mom. We've spoken of her many a times on this podcast.
And for me, it's probably not my mom. It's probably an aunt or something, but like the idea of asking for more food being something to look down on with like women, especially women of a certain generation, like asking for seconds, you get like the like side eye comment from your grandmother or whatever it is. Like everyone wants you to just be smaller physically and in the amount of things that you ask for from the world. Like just have less needs, take up less space physically and like, and also meal wise, like just be as small as humanly possible and fulfill other people's needs while maintaining the like lowest amount of needs possible for you to sustain life. I think that's a message that all women are given, especially throughout our upbringing and like in ways that are so subtle that like you only pick up on them as a whole and not like in the individual moments, or at least like I have like a black hole of memory from childhood, so like I don't really know what happened, but I do know that there is a persistent message of like take up less space, be smaller, don't have needs, don't ask for things.
I can attest to like generationally it's not when I look at like especially Gen X women who were like really, really affected by diet culture, it's very abrasive how obvious it is that they were asked to be smaller physically and in terms of needs. But it does, those Gen X women are the mothers of our generations. And so it stays a constant narrative for women growing up. And the conversation of whether or not it happens for men, I mean, I don't know if I've actually asked a man if they've felt like they had to be smaller. However, I was raised around many, many women, and then I moved in with my dad when I was 16. And my dad is a take no shit kind of guy, but with really good like morals and values. And so like love you, Dad. He's probably listening. Slightly problematic in that he like will confront you in the grocery store, but like only if you're being a bad person. But it's also like, Dad, please, we need to go. And so I kind of started taking some lessons from him. And now as like a full adult with like a partner who I feel safe with, I always joke like I don't shut the fuck up for many ways. But when it comes to my needs, like I will say them because that is the only way they are going to get met. Maybe not the only way. Hopefully you have some people in your life who are watching you from the sidelines or being quiet about meeting your needs. I do. Most people in, good relationships will have those people looking out for them. But at work, with my friends, with my colleagues, with my family, it's because I was taught by a man to not shut the fuck up about what I care about and what is important to me from a values perspective. Yeah. It's just funny kind of thinking that through as we're talking right now, being like, I've never asked a man, but I was taught that I can ask for more only by men who cared to teach me that.
Interesting.
Right?
And it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Because that is who you, I guess, would learn it from. That's like I always joke that there's like a little bit of audacity that I like I'm having to like cultivate in my like mid 30s that I feel like some people were just born with and like never had to learn. I'm like, oh, and I'm as like a white woman, like I have a lot of audacity naturally. We have a lot of privilege that like inherently we are just born into, and still there is like a level of learning that needs to happen. Yeah.
I call it, we've talked about this, I call it unhinged confidence. I think it's our synonyms for the same thing of like, I'm going to have audacity. I'm going to have unhinged confidence, go into this thing like I'm fully deserving, even though my imposter syndrome might tell me otherwise. And just because if you say it, if you speak it into the universe, sometimes it happens.
And I think like the longer I am just around circles of incredibly successful people, I'm like, I can do it. Like it's just the more you're around like incredibly rich, successful people, the less you have any sort of like mystique or awe about people in those rooms. You're like, oh yeah, no, it's just like your uncle knew a person and got you the job, or like there's like so much entitlement and privilege that goes into success. And then there are people who work incredibly hard, but they are not different from us. They are not smarter or better. They just have a slight bit more audacity, good timing, luck, and they work just as hard as we do.
Yeah. And you step into those rooms and one common ground, no matter how privileged they started out or not, is that they asked for more.
Yeah.
Yeah. They said, hey, you know someone that could get me that job. I want it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I deserve it. Yeah. And I deserve the partnership, and I deserve the sale and the introduction, and make it for me. Like, make this happen for me. And they hopefully didn't say it in such a dickish way that I just said it, but like...
That's the concept.
They advocated for themselves and decided that they should have it, maybe instead of someone else. Mm-hmm. And like that to me, I've always struggled with, well, but why me? Is there someone more deserving? Mm-hmm. And like there always is. Yep. But maybe they're not asking for it. And maybe if I just ask for it, then I can do the work to make it worthy, to make myself worthy of the opportunity.
Yeah. Which you are.
Aw, thanks, lady. So
why do you think it's hard for some people to put their neck out on the line for things like this?
We just stand in our own way. Like we are usually the person who is creating the most friction and resistance to like achieving the thing that we say that we want. But maybe we don't. And our brains do a really good job of keeping us small and keeping us safe because this is known. Like my brain knows where I live. It feels safe about where I live. It knows what my job is. It feels safe about what my job is. Even if I hate the job.
Yeah.
My biological instinct is to stay there because it's known. It's a known quantity and it's safe. Leaving spaces and situations that our brains feel psychologically safe in, even if we're not thriving, is safer than unknown. Mm-hmm. And so we almost have to like move past our biological instincts to achieve anything or make any sort of changes in our lives. And like Gloria always talks about yet, like you're just not ready yet. You just don't have enough education yet. You just yeah, of course it'll happen, but you just can't apply for that job yet. I think that like the Glow always says that yet is doing so much work because it's convincing you that you think you can do it, but keeping you exactly where you are. And so getting past the instinct to stay safe is a really hard challenge, I think, especially for women. I grew up with like get a pension and a government job, like family. So it's also just like the training of safety and security financially has been like embedded since I was very young.
Yeah. Well, and that whole get a pension thing, I feel like we're all told, and then that's just not actually how society works anymore.
There's like literally none of those jobs.
No.
Like, where am I getting a pension?
No. And if you get one of those jobs, it's like they call it the golden handcuffs for a reason. You're stuck. You're not happy. You're sitting there doing something you don't like. Also, just for reference for anyone who hasn't listened to the death episode, that is this ethereal Gloria or glow we are speaking of.
Go listen to that. Just shut this one off. Go listen to her right now.
Yeah, it's a great episode, and Gloria has a lot of really good coaching skills for people who struggle to ask for more. I think in what you said earlier about feeling undeserving, it's easy to sort of understand as like people who care deeply about equity and underserved communities getting opportunities and making things fair and equal and right in the world often fear that asking for more is greedy or is not values aligned. And I feel like you can strip it back to understand asking for more could mean like asking your family to help you move, or asking your friend to read your LinkedIn post, or asking someone, to help you if they have experience in something that you're new in. It doesn't have to be give me that job that is open in your company, or those big things that feel unfair. Start small. Ask your friend for help and see how it feels, because it doesn't feel that bad once you do it and people are like, yeah, I'll help you. You're like, oh, there are nice people in the world. I forgot.
And I think that's like, I rant about this too often, but capitalism and like hyper individualized capitalism keeps us like isolated from each other and keeps us isolated from communities of help by saying like, if I'm going to ask you to read my essay, I have to pay you. This becomes a transaction instead of, hey Quinn, you're an incredible writer, could you take 5 minutes and read this, and then I will return that favor very quickly in whatever way that makes sense. But there's no transaction there. It's just like communities of help. And so I think there's also like this fear of taking advantage of like asking for too much in like a bunch of different ways. And I think the way that you remedy that situation is by making sure that like you find ways to add value to the people. Like your friend helps you move, like how are you making sure that you're like taking that energy and giving it back to them in a different way in the future? And that's, for me at least, how I get over the cringe of like being like, I have needs and I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna ask someone to read this thing for me.
Yeah. I think that's something you've cultivated a lot at Growclass, and something I speak about just in even network speak, even in like I work for a B2B financial technology startup, and even still in that world, it's important to be like, I'm not actually talking to you to sell. I'm not talking to you for partnership. Maybe down the road, great. Maybe it's in the back of my mind, but I'm talking to you to make a friend, to offer my help, to be, to kiki about how exhausting this conference is. And that is how you make the best business partners. That is how you make the best friends, and how you keep family close is you don't make it transactional. Because sometimes it can't be. Sometimes you ask someone for more and they are going to change your life and you will never be able to repay them. You just won't, but you can try, and you can be nice and you can be good.
Yes.
And it does something.
Yeah.
So when it comes to rejection, big old scary, rejection, it happens when you're asking for more. Was there ever a time where it like really, really crushed you? And if so, how did you get back on your proverbial horse?
I've been rejected a lot in a lot of different ways, like for jobs, for promotions. I think I'm trying to think of like a recent example, but most of the rejection was when I was consulting. I think that was like the the period of time where you send the most proposals and get the most no's. And there was always like this period of time in between like sending and receiving a no or a yes, or just a full ghost, which happens way too often with everything. And I would panic. Like that was like always my panic zone of like I can't control the outcome and I don't know what's going to happen and they might say no. And the coach that I had at the time that told me the rejection thing too just said like, it's not about you. None of this is about you. Like the yes or the no has everything to do with what's going on with them. And like, sure, you can use that information to change things, but like they haven't responded to your email because their kid is sick. Like it's not about you. Most of it isn't. And whether or not you get the yes or the no isn't really a reflection on you. It's just a reflection on their circumstances and like the strength of your proposal. And that was really helpful. But the first few no's when I was consulting, especially because I was like, I need to pay my bills, like those were really hard, and I took them really personally, and it made me worse at my job until I kind of started detaching my value from whether or not I got a yes, because it very rarely has anything to do with you.
Yeah. And that's a really hard process, like detaching your personal value as a human who is good and welcome in this world from how much you get paid, the jobs you get or don't get, is a hard practice. And I think even the people who have overcome it, like you, like it doesn't not, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't not affect you still. Like if it were to happen again, it's the same process of going, okay, it's not about me, but maybe it feels a little bit about me. No, Sarah, it's not about me. And having to go through that process every time. It's not just now I believe that every no is water off a duck's back. It's active work.
I think also like the no can fuel me. Like sometimes the no is like a sting on the ego. Sure. Sometimes I'm able to detach from it because the outcome really isn't that big of a deal. Sometimes I'm like, bet. Like, okay, you don't think I'm capable of this? Let's fucking go. And that is when I get my best work done. Like tell me I can't. Like, please tell me I can't, because I'm an Aries and I'm stubborn as hell, and I'm also a workhorse if you put me in the right mindset. And like, tell me I can't do it. Tell me I can't build a 7-figure business bootstrapped, like with a full team of women in a very like, fucking tell me I can't. Tell me I can't be in Forbes. Like, tell me I can't, because then I will. That is like the best energy I have, is like your underestimation is my like fucking fire. Also, she said it way too quietly, and you deserve this drop in Forbes. Did you hear that? Forbes. Sarah was in Forbes recently, and deservedly so. I can't believe anyone ever told you those things, because you're a powerhouse. And I think like too, if like some people won't directly tell you, but early on, especially when I was building Growclass, people would be like, yeah, that's a great little project. So when are you actually like starting a thing? Because I want to invest. And so like just those like microaggressions of like, I don't believe this has value. I don't believe the thing you're building is real. And I'm like, bet. Okay. All right. Let's go.
Yeah. And sometimes it sucks, I think, especially in the entrepreneurship startup world, because there's people like you who had to go and build the thing and then bring it to people and be like, look at the value. And then there's like the age old story of like that stupid beer app. Do you remember? This was like early iPhone, iPad, where it like pretended to be a cup of beer, and then if you tilted it, it would pretend that had backing. That had money behind it. And when you look at something like that versus something like Growclass, you're like, hold on, where is our world going? And it can be kind of infuriating sometimes. But you show them.
And I think too, sometimes like the things that need to exist in the world aren't like cool. Like building an education company that is like a facade for like a friendship company isn't
I love that you put it that way.
Like, it's not SaaS, it's not AI, it's not hyper scalable. Like, it's not the things that people who would want to invest in a business would be looking for necessarily. I'm like, please don't give me money, because you're going to make me scale a community and then break it, and I don't want to do that. And so I think there's also like the pieces that you just have to believe the thing that you that exists, that you want to exist in the world, deserves to exist in the world, whether or not it's like fintech payments app. Like, I'm not interested in building that. And like, there are people who are, and that's great. Investors will salivate over that. They're not going to salivate over something that requires so much human investment and community building. But that's the thing that I think needs to exist. And so fuck them. I'm just going to spend my time doing that.
Yeah, as you should. Because as we've said 1,000 times on this podcast before, what you've built is the human investment in what you've built is what makes it different. It's what I talk about when I share with people what Growclass is. The education is incredible. Yes. The certification, it's great. And then everything you get with it, which is like you and your team and all the other people who are doing the education at the same time, who become the people who you ask for more from first. Mm-hmm. That, from a career perspective, has changed how I view being able to ask for more. Because I'll turn to Growclass first. That's where I ask for more the first time. And then I'm like, oh, right, these people actually think it's valuable. And that's, 1,500 other marketers in this group chat who all, liked my shit. So maybe I can present it to the board. Yes. And they will accept it,
Yes, yeah. 100%.
So in consciously unlearning those people-pleasing ways and being socialized as a young woman, what are some of the biggest lessons for you that keep you motivated to keep asking for more?
I think there's the more for the sake of more, and then there's more because you have a mission. And I think more for the sake of more is capitalism just telling you that like you need a bigger house or you need more money or whatever that is. That's not interesting to me. More because there's a reason for it, that's interesting. And so I think where people get stuck is they're like, well, I have enough, and like, sure, I could have more money or I could have more power, but like, what is it for? And I'm like, oh, I know what it's for. Like, I know what the money and the power is for, because I know I have like a mission propelling what I want to do, and what I want to create in the world requires resources, requires power. And so I think that shift for me, it was less about like just amassing capital, because that is like a hamster wheel of death and like not good for the world, but like what is enabled by you asking for more? If you are more powerful versus a guy named Brad in a Patagonia, what does the world look like? Is the world better because you have more power than him? Probably. Yeah. Like, depending on who Brad is, I don't know.
Yeah. Some Brads are fine.
Maybe he's a Trump supporter. Like,
some Brads are not fine.
100%. Like, and so like, I learned this like working for white dudes building companies who just wanted wealth and power for the sake of it. And my job was to help them get it. Like, anytime you are working for a company, you are helping the CEO of that company become more wealthy and powerful. And so A, why not you? And B, who do you want to be wealthy and powerful in the world? And who do you want to get more? Yeah. And what are they going to do with it when they get there? And then should it be you? Should it be the person that you're working for? And if the answer to that question is like, yes, it should be the person I'm working for, awesome. Work with everything you have to make that successful. If it should be you, I want you to spend your time and effort putting yourself in a position of more wealth and more power so that you can do good things in the world with it, versus where that energy could go otherwise.
Yeah, it's interesting, having now worked in the financial technology space for a year. It's, and I can say this proudly because everybody at my team knows it, it is not my soul fuel. And I love it. I love my job. And
great job.
Part of what keeps me going is that I've known the founders long before I got this job, and I believe they are good humans who deserve what the growth that they are seeing, who deserve to grow this company. And if not for that, it's not like I wake up every day going, you know what I really care about today? Financial technology. You know who I really want to talk to? I spent 10
years of my career doing it.
Yeah, I'm like, you know who I really want to talk to at that conference? Wealth bros. My favorite kind of people. Like, yay. no, but I believe in the people. Yes. And so it fuels me to care deeply about what we do. Yeah. And if I didn't believe in the people, which I've had jobs where I didn't like who was at the top of the food chain. Yeah. And I was dragging my friggin' feet. Yeah. It was so hard to get up every morning and pour into that. Whereas now, again, not a financial technology girly. Love my job. Yeah. I wake up and I pour into it.
Yeah,
because I'm pouring into good people.
You're working to give the right people resources to do good things in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what matters.
So when you're hyping yourself up, you're building said audacity.
Yes.
To ask for something hard. What's your process like? Are you like the talk in the mirror kind of person, or?
I like to prepare aggressively.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like to know everything. So if I'm getting on a call with a journalist and I want them to write about Growclass, or I'm getting on a call with a government funder and I want them to fund Growclass, like why us and not somebody else? Like what will this be able to enable in the world? And then again, from a sales perspective, what do they care about? Mm-hmm. What are they coming in, like being incredibly curious about the folks that you are asking for something from and how you can enable them to be successful. I think a lot of the time when we kind of get in our own heads about asking for something, but we forget to really empathize with the person that you're asking for it from, and make sure that the ask is framed in a way that that person is likely to say yes, and you're likely to be able to deliver something for them as well, because it's really not just about you are extracting value from somewhere, and how are you going to make that fulfilling transaction on both sides. So doing a lot of research, making sure you're understanding their potential objections, where they're coming from, how you can add the most value for them, and then like listening more than you talk as much as possible in those conversations, especially if you're asking for more money or for a promotion. I'm on the like other side of those conversations now, and having empathy for where your boss is coming from. So say you realize you're being underpaid, giving them a heads up, like, hey, I found out this information. I want to have a conversation about it. Let me know, like you probably want to talk to our HR partners. Like you probably need to go back and have some conversations. Let me know when this makes sense. Not bulldozing them with the conversation, because no one's often, they're not trying to do anything nefarious. There's no like grand conspiracy. Sometimes there is. Yeah. But often there's not.
Yeah.
So just coming with empathy from the other side as well.
Yeah. I like that, cause and you can take that something as big as a startup and down to something as small as, like I said, like asking your friends to help you move. Is how are you going to frame that ask to be like, I've thought about what this means for you, and so I've picked up some bags of chips, and I'll pick up your favorite pop or drink, and take out dinners on me because I could just really use the extra hands, and offering the ask as I've thought about what it looks like for you. Yeah. Even if it's small, all the way to, proving ROI when you're asking for an investment. Mm-hmm. Making it a interaction with people and not an interaction with money or greed.
Yes. Yeah. And really actually caring a lot about the experience of the person on the other side of the ask.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever regretted asking for more?
I've regretted being a dick about it.
Nice.
Like I've definitely regretted. So like when I've discovered that I was being underpaid, or people were, being male counterparts were being paid more than me. Got a little fiery feminist early 20s Sarah, like just assumes this is a grand conspiracy. and it's on purpose, and not the result of a lack of HR practice or just like a lack of thought from people who are incredibly stressed out and busy. And so now that I'm a founder, I can see how, especially of like early stage scrappy companies, like you can see how things happen and nobody is trying to do anything badly. They just have. Mm-hmm. They've made a mistake somewhere along the line. Something happened. Someone aggressively negotiated. Someone was acqui-hired. Like something happened and there's an inequity. And instead of approaching it with a like lens of perhaps this is a mistake, I would approach things with a lens of the system. Yeah. And like there are times where we need to burn down systems for sure, but I would say like I would go back to my very fire former self and be like, hey, step 1, empathy. Step 1, assume positive intent until you have evidence that there isn't, and then for sure burn it down. Yeah. But like assume positive intent first and see where that gets you. Mm-hmm. And then
usually further,
always, like always. Yeah.
Have you ever regretted not asking for more?
Oh my God, yes. in every negotiation, up until like a couple weeks ago where I gave speaking rights and they immediately accepted it and didn't push back at all. And I knew I've found like the longer I do this, the more like if there's no back and forth at all about the price, it's too low. Like if you're like, hey, it's going to be $5,000. They're like, great. Because they were planning on it being 15.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're like, shit.
Yeah. That happened to me freelancing so many times.
Oh
like
my
they
gosh.
didn't blink. I'm like, oh, I could have gone so much higher.
Oh. No. And like I still very often act like I'm at the beginning of my speaking career when I'm pricing myself, when I should be much further along. And I still just have like, that is like one area that I am still working on, asking for more. But very consistently, I will just say what it costs. And people are like, great. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
no.
Next time.
I've made a mistake.
I've made a big mistake. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like not asking for more will often have more regrets than asking for more.
Yes.
Asking for more will have more internal battles of imposter syndrome and am I worthy and can I do this? But not asking for more, like you're going nowhere without it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, thank you. This has been so good. I know we're at the end of our episode and I just feel like we could do this for a few hours. But I want to know where can people find you online? Obviously, Growclass. Plug Growclass hardcore here, please and thank you.
Growclass. I'm SK Stockdale on most social platforms. I don't really hang out on X much anymore, but I'm everywhere else. And growclass.co. Growclass on all social channels.
Yeah. We're not sponsored by Growclass, but big fan. I do have an affiliate link in my bio because I just constantly tell people to do Growclass. So please check that out. Check out Growclass. Follow Sarah as well as follow and engage with our content online at Say It I Dare You Pod, TikTok, Instagram. And if you're listening to these episodes, first and foremost, thank you. And secondly, please download, leave a review. All of those things really help us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.